Yeah, my name is Caleb Brunz, and I'm president and CEO of Paul Davis Restoration. I'm out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and also own the office in Duluth, Minnesota. Started the business about 13 years ago from scratch with myself and two other employees. And
Mhm.
we're close to 125, 130 employees across both offices. I didn't really build the business. I built the team that built the business. And I'm passionate about that fact. And the head coach title is really encompassing of what I'm passionate about, which is unlocking talent and potential within individuals and watching people grow from one point in their career or their understanding and their skill sets and experience to another point, ultimately how they feel when they succeed and the rewards that both the company and the individual get when they succeed is what drives my passion.
And what do you think is underneath that, Caleb? Because as long as I've known you, that has been something that's been very characteristic of you is that you have this genuine desire to help people to, as you and I might say, realize their potential,
Yes.
right? Like what are the if we follow the
I
roots
know I
back a
know where
little
the
bit?
roots come from
Uh,
that. I mean, I'm one of 13 children. I grew up very poor, did not have a lot of opportunities, but was always willing to work really hard, put in long hours, do manual labor. You know, grit is the word I would use to describe my upbringing, and I feel blessed and lucky that I grew up with that because it became who I was, and I had this obligation, if you will, to pass the torch, and that was my responsibility to pass the torch, to
mhm.
continue to take what I had learned, hand it forward to other people.
And do you think that because the term, like, we're talking about culture, and we're talking about how do you build we use the phrase in the book, how do you build a weird culture, like a culture that's very distinct? Do you think that a person can be more or less wired to be a great culture builder? Do you think it's a learned skill, or do you think it's something that is really more kind of nurtured into you?
I think it can be both. I think it can be
Mhm.
learned, and I also think that certain people have a higher propensity to be able to contain and be aware of a culture. I was thinking about the term culture today, and at the root
Mhm.
of the word culture, I always joke is the word cult. Now that has a negative
Mhm.
connotation, but what does that mean? It means that people are all rowing in the same sort of fashion. And for us, culture starts with knowing what kind of culture we have. What do we want? And having that somewhat defined. I think it's defined in your core values. For us, it's grit, growth, integrity, compassion, and respect. And so if you have those
Mhm.
filters, it starts really in the interviewing process and the recruiting process to make sure you're looking for people who would align with those. For looking for people who would align with introspection or whatever value is important to how the business is going to operate, because if they don't and you have your culture, two things are going to happen. One, they're going to be unhappy because they don't fit the culture, or two, they will become potentially cancerous, not intentionally, but just who they are potentially, or a weed in your example. They become a weed in that garden. Guarding of it is really, really important. I'll say it this way, I'll steal it from Gary Vee, but if you're not willing to fire your highest performer because they are killing your culture, then you're not a good leader. Part of that
Mhm.
is you got to be willing to take a perceived hit on results for performers potentially who are doing really well. You got to be willing to make the tough calls. You got to protect it at the beginning, and you got to be able to address what would be more the deal breakers of culture. Every company has a culture. It's there no matter what. Whether you're aware of it or not is on us as leaders. And it's either positive or it's negative. That's
Mhm.
important to know. And it's not creating a culture. You already have one. It's understanding what is your culture? Does it align with your vision and values of the organization? And if not, what are the tangible things that you're doing to get that alignment?
And so, if we were to go on a tour of your company, maybe someone other than you is leading us on a tour, and we're kind of goosenecking, looking around. What are some of the things that we're going to see? What are we going to feel? What are we going to see? Some things that we experience that we might even say, "Well, that's kind of weird."
The feedback I've seen is when people walk in and start to interact with our team members, they would see an excitement. They would see a very warm and welcoming environment from any position in the business, whether you're a technician or a cleaner in the contents facility, or you are in management or in leadership. You wouldn't really know who's who, maybe because of some of the dress and attire, but you wouldn't feel a difference. There would be a bit of a feeling of no hierarchy, even though there's a different level of responsibility with every person. You would feel a sense of most people knowing everybody else's names. You would feel a sense of pride. This group takes a lot of pride in where we're going as an organization and what we're doing. And you'd see a lot of excitement. There's a genuine amount of excitement in our culture for opportunities to continue to grow and move along in whatever career path people are in. Outside of that, you'd see a lot of fun. We've got a lot of fun developed into our new space. I can walk down and say hi to people in their offices. I make it a point to walk around the office and smile and say thank you to people for doing what they're doing.
And then what does praise look like in your company?
We have a saying that find people doing things right. It's so easy to find where everybody needs to improve and change, but human nature sometimes is just focus on the negative, and we make it a point to focus on the positive. And so where we recognize that specifically is around, we call it shout outs. What have you seen of your peers where you go, wow, they did this for this client, they did this for their team member in the job, in the working environment, or at the winning of our restoration business.